Long before maps, long before compass needles pointed north, long before galleons and colonial ships, there were voyagers crossing the Pacific, guided by nothing but the wind, the waves, and the stars above. No instruments, no steel, no satellites, and yet, they connected thousands of islands. From Taiwan to the Philippines, to Polynesia, to Madagascar. These were the seafarers of the ancient Austronesian world. Among them, the ancestors of the Filipino people, navigators, boat builders, and ocean scientists. This is not a legend. This is history carved into hulls, chanted in memory, and buried beneath centuries of erasure. And the ocean still remembers. In 1976, archaeologists uncovered the remains of ancient wooden boats in Butuan, Philippines. These were the Balangay, also spelled barangay, dating back to the 4th and 5th centuries CE. Constructed without nails, using dowels and natural fiber lashings, the Balangay was engineered for long-distance travel across open water. These vessels were not only seaworthy, they were sophisticated expressions of a maritime society. They carried families, warriors, tools, trade goods, and spiritual traditions. The Balangay was more than a boat. It was a symbol of organization, governance, and migration. The very word barangay is still used today to describe the smallest administrative unit in the Philippines, rooted in the concept of a boat-based community. These ancient mariners used the stars not as myth, but as measurement. They memorized star paths, routes guided by specific constellations that appeared and shifted with the Earth's rotation. Orion's belt, the Southern Cross, and the Pleiades constellation were not decorative points in the sky. They were waypoints on a mental map. Star positions determined direction. Their seasonal rising and setting marked when to sail and when to return. This knowledge was stored not in scrolls or charts, but in the minds of navigators, passed through chants, stories, and ritual instruction. The sea itself was a source of constant information. Navigators learned to read swell patterns, wave reflection, and ocean sounds. Different wave directions indicated the presence of nearby islands or deep-sea trenches. The color of the water could indicate proximity to reefs or sandbanks. Even the smell of the air, or the presence of certain birds, offered clues. These techniques formed a complete sensory toolkit, a dynamic understanding of the ocean as a living, readable environment. Navigation was achieved without a magnetic compass. Instead, sailors relied on relational orientation, describing directions in terms of natural phenomena, where the waves rise before sunrise, or toward the island where birds sleep. Their mental maps were fluid and adaptive, rooted in seasonal behavior and environmental awareness. This system, known in some traditions as Itak, in Micronesia, and found in related forms across Austronesian cultures, demonstrates a high-level spatial intelligence. All of this knowledge was passed without writing. Instead, oral tradition served as the archive. Navigators were taught through chants, rhythmic recitations, and symbolic gestures. These chants encoded instructions for routes, dangers, seasonal changes, and celestial behavior. The tradition resembled a floating university, where sailors carried not only goods, but the intellectual and spiritual memory of their people. In some remote regions of the Philippines, fragments of this tradition survive today. Austronesian navigators, many passing through or originating from the Philippine region, reached some of the most remote places on Earth. They reached Hawaii, Easter Island, New Zealand, and Madagascar. The linguistic and genetic footprints of this expansion remain visible to this day. Banana crops in East Africa, outrigger canoe technology in the Pacific, and Malagasy words in Madagascar all trace back to Southeast Asia. This was not accidental drift. This was a planned, multi-generational maritime civilization, of which the early Filipinos were a crucial part. When Spanish expeditions arrived in the 1500s, they depended heavily on local navigators to move through unfamiliar waters. Filipino pilots guided Spanish galleons through archipelagic routes. Filipino sailors manned the ships of the Manila-Acapulco galleon trade, a global maritime network. The very success of Spanish conquest in the region was made possible by the knowledge and labor of indigenous seafarers. And yet, history books rarely name them. With colonization came cultural suppression. Navigational chants were banned, shipbuilding was restricted, Oral traditions were replaced with European systems. Indigenous knowledge was deemed inferior or lost entirely. By the 1800s, traditional navigation had largely disappeared from coastal life. By the 20th century, the Balangay itself had become a memory. But fragments survived, quietly, in songs, stories, and rituals, waiting to be remembered. In 2009, a group of Filipinos revived the Balangay tradition, rebuilding ancient vessels by hand and sailing them across Southeast Asia. They used no compass, no engine, no modern navigation tools, just traditional techniques passed down from elders and rediscovered through study. It was a statement. The legacy had not died. It had simply been silenced, and now, it was speaking again. This history was never lost, only buried. Long before empires arrived, long before modern navigation, there were already people crossing oceans, charting routes with nothing but the stars, the wind, and the wisdom of those who came before. The Filipino maritime tradition is one of the most advanced seafaring legacies in human history. Its memory endures in the shape of boats, in the rhythm of chants, and in the waves that still echo ancient roots. No maps were needed, just knowledge, and the courage to sail.